I'm Michael AIVANHOV. Agape interdimensional spatial resonance. Channeling of Sunday, March 1st of I'm Michael AIVANHOV in the city of Cusco. Well, dear friends, I'm extremely happy to meet you in this very special place of the planet and to be with you, of course, to answer your questions. And, as you can imagine, I obviously have a number of things to say as well, but I will do so either during the questions or after the questions concerning, I would say, what we call civilizations, and the special role that can be assigned to this whole part of the world which is called Central and South America. But first of all, I send you all my blessings and I look forward to having a good time with you. So, dear friend, if you would like to start with the questions, I am listening to them. Brother, I should tell you first of all, however, that I too am extremely pleased to welcome you here in Peru, as well as my brothers and sisters, some of whom do not yet know you. It will not be long before they understand who I am. Laughs. Brother. Good. So, first question. So, all the questions come from the brothers and sisters who are present in Peru. Of course, because it wasn't announced elsewhere, it was preferable. So, I'm listening to you. Brother, those who are there. So, the question from a brother. Between the discipline of the spirit, when we now say that it is an obstacle, and the lack of discipline of a spirit that wanders, where is freedom and truth? Then, of course, dear brother, when we speak of the words that the discipline of the spirit is today superfluous, even an obstacle, we are not addressing all the brothers and sisters of the planet, but it was agreed that this speech was directed, above all, to those who had at one time or another, listened to all that had been delivered by Outres Dimensions and by the head chief for years. But for someone who would be landing and has no notion of energy, vibration, consciousness or even hope or desire for anything, one should not confuse the wandering of the common mortal spirit. So, obviously it also ties in with what Eba was saying about the ability to simply embrace what is within the instant moment in what is unfolding in your life to be the truth, to be agape. Everything else is indeed superfluous. It was explained by Baidu, by me, by Eba, by head chief. Today, all you have to do is to accept and embrace what is, before yourself any questions, and you will find that you are living agape and that you will find your natural state of who you are before the form, before the worlds and before the manifestation. And this principle is valid for everyone because time zero, which is the good news, is omnipresent on the surface of the planet. This has not been a case for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, because of the primary anomaly. Now that the primary anomaly for almost 2 years has been dissolved, it is extremely easy to find the present instant, zero time, simply by embracing what is without seeking to change anything. Of course, do not misunderstand, it means that if you have problems to solve on the level of this life, here, they must be solved. But it is precisely in this attitude, in this posture or this point of view as Baidu would say, which is the unconditional acceptance of what is, which places you in the present instant, which allows you to embrace, which allows you to cross over and to discover and to live the truth. You need absolutely nothing else today. That is to say that all the steps of the spirit, all the vibratory, spiritual and knowledge paths, as Eba said, are today, only today for less than 2 years, a formal obstacle to the discovery of who you are. That is to say, remember that you are anterior to any world, anterior to any form and anterior to any consciousness. And the brothers and sisters who are living this, by the millions today, always describe the same thing to you. Knowledge is superfluous. You need to know the train schedules. You need to know what is specific to your profession. But for who you are, all that is no longer relevant. Of course, and it has been said over and over again, you don't have to believe me, but above all, you have to check it out for yourself. Then, of course, those who are more sensitive to energies, to vibrations, to perceptions, there again will describe to you all the same sensitive manifestations at the level of the heart, for example, of what we call vibrations. But before the vibration, you have always been there, as you have always been there before the creation of the world, before the appearance of this body, even before your birth. It is that reminiscence that makes you free. Everything else deprives you of freedom. All your knowledge, even your energetic knowledge, about the chakras, about the traditional models that were useful before, whether it is meditation, whether it is following a religion, today, is a formal and total obstacle to freedom. So don't ask me what freedom is. All the brothers and sisters who live it, recognize themselves instantly by this state outside of any state that has been named agape, and today especially, agape interdimensional space resonance, which shows you that there has never been anyone, which is the final stage of understanding and living the unity where each one is indeed completely and truly in each other, whether you want it or not. Mary is in you, the devil is in you, Christ is in you, the enemy is in you, the friend is in you, the husband is in you, all the rest is just a cinema. Totally. And of course, all those who find themselves beforehand through acceptance with humility, simplicity and the four pillars will live the truth and will recognize themselves. But this recognition can be neither nor vibratory, neither linked to a knowledge nor even linked to a perception. It is time zero. So evidently, the person that you will continue to live in this world. There is no question of fleeing from the world. It is a question of assuming if you have children, it is a question of assuming your profession, but not to be fooled by it. What all the brothers and sisters who are living it tell you is that it is a dream. It doesn't exist. From the moment you live it, you are free of the dream itself. But you have no dream to run away from. But it will give you, not faith, not strength, but an unshakable inner certainty whose watchword is joy. In other words, the one who is liberated from his person, from history and from any projection, lives his life normally in the family, in the profession, in relationships. But he is never fooled again, because he has understood, by living it, that all this is only passing and is not true. It totally relieves the person. It totally relieves the very unfolding of your days far beyond what was called at the time the fluidity of unity. So don't ask yourself questions, as Badi would say. Get inside. It's all there. Consciousness is a total illness. You're anterior to consciousness. I tell you, you have famous people, scientists who live it. You have millions of anonymous brothers and sisters living it. It can be recognized by the brightness of your eyes, by your smile, by your liveliness, by your joy, by your service, by your need to commune and to share while continuing your most ordinary life, without claiming anything at the spiritual level. This is true humility, and this is the only truth common to all forms of consciousness present in this world and in all people. Everything else is of no use to you. So, as has been said, of course, if you need to heal your character, well, you call upon what is known in this world, whether it be medication, energy, the exploration of consciousness. But that will never set you free. And you will also see through the countless testimonies that the brothers and sisters who are in that freedom and in the joy of agape no longer ask themselves questions. They ask questions, of course, about daily life, but they no longer ask questions about who they are and where they are going, since they are not going anywhere. They have always been there. It's this kind of, it's not a reconnection but a recognition of self that ends the scam, as Badi would say, of spirituality. The scam of energy is a way of finding oneself. The energy allows you to heal the person, of course, but will not be of any use to you to live the truth. And all those who sell you energies, vibrations, states of consciousness, whatever the techniques, of course, it is perfect to treat the person. But if you are promised to find yourself through this, run away. Totally. You don't need anything. You don't need any energy. You don't need any master, as Badi would say. You're the truth. You're the source and you're prior to the source. Everything else, as Badi would say, it is theater or cinema. It is just passing by. You will never pass. It is not concepts, it is an experience. And as long as you put the need to understand, you will never be able to live it until the collective event which is very real. That is the answer I can make with respect to the spirit. And first of all, what is spirit? Many brothers and sisters talk about the soul, the spirit. But have you seen it? No, it is a concept even if it is a reality within the incarnation. The only thing you cannot be manipulated, lured, deceived, is the truth. And the truth is that there is no one and there never was. And that there has never been consciousness except for dreaming. And that changes everything, because it is a relief, because you don't need rituals anymore, you don't need sitting, you don't need meditation, you don't need a master, you don't need a guru, you don't need anyone. You need the other one to heal you, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense. But to find yourself, as long as you think you need someone outside yourself, you trap yourself completely. Then we can move on. Brother. So, about a sister. We know that there were great advanced technologies before man. Why has man not been able to benefit from these discoveries? But because all civilizations, and you have examples here of civilizations that span millions of years and not just 300,000 years or 10,000 years. Every civilization appears and disappears, because from the moment the manifestation is a swindle, the knowledge of the prison, of the matrix, the very energetic and spiritual knowledge, is of no use to you. Every societal organization ends in chaos, that is why there is nothing left of it. As long as you believe that technologies of any kind whatsoever, apart from making your ordinary life easier, will be of no use to you in finding yourself. As long as you have not found yourself as an illusion, a dream or a nightmare, depending on what you are living, you cannot be in joy or be free. This is clear, sharp and precise, and as we have been telling you for a year and a half, it will become more and more important every day. Everything that you hold on to, you hold on to. I didn't mean that you should leave your profession, your children or your family. On the contrary, you have to take responsibility for what you yourself have written, for what you yourself have decided to live, even if it seems, I would say, hellish. But the more you let go, the more you give up any claim to want to change anything to what is, the freer you are. It's been explained at length and in detail. So the technological masters, for example, here, the levitation of stones, the particular sounds that could cut stones like a laser, have been lost. But you too today have another binary technology related to electrons, to modern technology. What do you think will be left of that? Nothing at all. So why do you want to benefit other civilizations? There have always been technological advances. And here you have a perfect illustration of this, even though these technologies do not use electronic circuits. There was the stone, there was the resonance of the stone, because the stone is considered to be the materialization of consciousness at its densest degree. That's why you have temples. That's why you have sculptures, not only here, but from all over the world. Pyramid technology, for example, that's where. But it was all about dreams. And it was said by the cetaceans, by Ferham, you're in the sixth dream. Scientists will tell you that you're in the sixth mass extinction. It's real, it's concrete. It's not tomorrow, it's right now. What does it matter to the one who is free? Remember, Epa said it again not long ago. As the chaos of the world grows, if you accept not to be dragged along by it, by acceptance, by embracing, you're going to go through the chaos and you're going to be more and more joyful. It's not something morbid, because the world is being destroyed. But it's illusion that's destroying itself. And as we told you, there are many brothers and sisters still dreaming of a new earth. We have told you, let them dream. They are still projecting consciousness. They have not found each other. The one who finds himself does not need a new earth, does not need a body of eternity, does not need a future, does not need a past, does not need knowledge, he is himself. He has found himself. And everything else appears to you as a huge scam, a dream, something that passes. But you had to come close to this truth, not as an individual, as Bai did, for example, or a Hildegard of Bingen did in her time. But today, collectively, you're all ready. But as long as you hold on to your spirituality, to your energies, you are still inscribed in dream and illusion. You cannot be free. Freedom is a gate whatever the troubles, the joys of your life. You are no longer fooled by this, you assume even if sometimes there are emotions, anger. But never again can you be deceived. Nisargadatta when he was alive said, "My words cannot fail." From the moment you accept that this, your character, your life, your relationships, even the most emotional ones, are a dream. Of course, they won't go away because they belong to the dream. You'll have to keep on dreaming. But you know you're dreaming. Whereas before, you don't know that you are dreaming. And until you do not know it, you are deceived by spirituality, by the masters of light. We too have deceived you, really and concretely. But we have led you, because it was written, to the breaking point. And Ebba had told you, all the archetypes of this planet have been falsified, even Christ, even Mary, not the entity but the resonance that is present in this world. Because it sends you back to a history, it sends you back to a predation and, above all, to a lack of freedom. As long as you have not understood and lived that Christ is within you, you can always wait for an external Christ or a Buddha or a master. And you always have countless testimonies of brothers and sisters who have found who they are. They live the dream like everyone else because you must not run away from it. It is not a question of going to isolate yourself somewhere, but of being fully present, fully lucid, fully available. So, I am listening to you. Brother, question from a sister. Is there an intraterrestrial city in Lake Titicaca? There is, and there were many, many underground cities. Of course, in the story of creation as told to you by Phehwan, for the first dream, all the dreams were by subterranean peoples. There were, you remember, the intraterrestrials, those who had, until 2010 to 2011, an important role in maintaining the possibility of finding you. But of course, there are intraterrestrial cities and with lots of archaeology also since time immemorial on this earth. You know, the earth is the place of the first dream. That is where the mother's geneticists brought the Sirius crystal of life, the blue crystal, and created the crystalline core of the earth and created the matrices of the dream. Why did they do that? Ask yourself the question. Because we always say, mother's geneticists are big sisters, they are very evolved beings. There is no evolution. When you realize that the world is within you and not elsewhere, you no longer make any difference between your Libat and Mary. It is the same love that escapes from you independently of any desire, any idea and any thought. As long as you do not live this, you cannot accept it. It is impossible for the mind, it is impossible for the energy, and it is impossible for the consciousness. Freedom is not superconsciousness. And yet we have been talking to you for years about superconsciousness, because it was a junction point with non-being. It is the I between being and non-being that reveals to you what you are, the Absolute, the Parade Brahman. It was necessary to reconstruct history, and you were in this country, not to reconstruct history but to solve history. And I think Head Chief told you about it yesterday. Brother, yes. At the vibratory level, at the level of consciousness and at the level of freedom, you are going to see appearing, not events on Earth, they continue at their rhythm, but a kind of outbreak of brothers and sisters who are not affected by the virus, but who are affected by the truth. Do you see? So, we can go on. Brother, precisely we had a question from a sister about the day of February 29th, the importance of this day. It is an important day. You were with that place, because it was written. I am talking in particular about where you went yesterday and I was with you. There was a storm at the place. You know, when this place was discovered, because I had been informed when I was incarnate, when the door of the sun was opened, there was a huge storm that smashed the door of the sun. It was not for nothing. And when you went there and when I went with you yesterday, there was a storm at the site. You are going to live other things that do not concern you individually, even though evidently some of you have had incarnations here, as in Egypt and elsewhere. Therefore, it is not a matter of finding the memory somewhere, but of going through these places and living beyond the energy, of seeing beyond the vibration and the consciousness what the effect is on you and on the earth. And you will see them appear. You will see brothers and sisters who, for example, today, I am speaking at this time, it has not been announced, and who will live something special. They will only know it afterwards. As for Mahananda Moye, who had the surprise of coming to see you on Lake Titicaca, where indeed the second dream took place, therefore through the underground cities that exist here and not only under Lake Titicaca. You have extremely ancient galleries that run through the Andes Cordillera from north to south without interruption. You have extremely deep technological structures, several hundred, or even thousands of meters for some under the mountains, that are still present. But that's not just here. But perhaps here, it has a particular meaning in the genesis of the dream, of the matrix, but also of the interaction between the geneticist's mothers, because all of this had to be written down before living it, in order to solve the dream, that is to say, to get out of the dream, to get out of the nightmare. And as you may know, it has been said, but you live it, everything is solved right here on this earth, because the world is within you and because this place is the place of the first dream and the last dream. All the other dreams, the stellar lines, the Arcturians, the Vigalians, the angels of the Lord, it is you at another time. But I am telling you that, you can't make it conscious, you can't have visions or even knowledge of it. It is when you find yourself that you live all this in a fraction of a second. You don't need images. You don't need a date. You don't need construction. It's immediate. What doesn't prevent you, since you are doing it, is to happily go through this place or other places as head chief has done in other places. That is all. And another thing. Brother, since you spoke of a dream, here is a dream from the night of February 28th to 29. The night before that, okay. Brother, I am looking at myself on a theater stage, that is, my view is as if I am floating above the spectators. So I see myself on a stage in a theater. I play the role of the Virgin Mary. I'm in labor. I'm alone in the stable, there is no one playing the role of Joseph or the apostles. Then, the point of view changes, I find myself in my body on stage holding a beautiful baby who is therefore Jesus. The dream stops there. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, there are two important things. First of all, a great initiatory dream which announces somewhere an immense rebirth of the inner child, of yourself, virgin of all defilement. Mary, it's the mother geneticists. Mary is in each one of you, of course. But there is obviously an entity that was really Mary. But there's no more than that. What will show you is something that's happening inside you. Now I draw your attention, when you say, I see myself on the theater stage in a stable. Who sees himself? That is where we see the notion of the observer, the witness, the one who is prior to the manifestation and who becomes aware that even the birth of Christ is part of the dream. Of course, this dream announces, above all, the rebirth, and especially as I asked you, but who is watching this? Because at some point you find yourself in your body. So, what you were not your body. It was the observer witnessing his own birth, but also that very disappearance of the witness and the observer who makes you understand, by living it, that you are the totality of the dream, the totality of creation. And there, agape is there permanently. This is what I can say about it. Brother. So, question of a sister. How can we understand, at this end of time, the formation of a couple with sometimes great differences in age and or character? Quite simply because there are common histories and through what you sometimes call differences in age, but it can also happen at the same age. Everything you're living right now is exactly what you wrote. You don't have to choose. Besides, the one who still believes he has a choice is not free. Real freedom is accepting what is. Then of course you cannot live the dream since you're in it, without of course having societal rules. Taking into account that, for example, tomorrow you have to go to work, or that you have to write a check for the taxes, or that you have an illness, that's part of the dream. But as I said, you are never fooled again. Live it up. Remember that sentence that is becoming important, which was repeated by Baidu, by Eba, by me, by everyone. Whatever must happen will happen, whatever you do, whatever must not happen will not happen, whatever you do. This is the abandonment to the light that Enel spoke of more than 10 years ago. That is what sacrifice is all about. It is nothing else. It is being totally available in the present instant, without reference to the past, without reference to the future. That is to say, by accepting in totality what is, without wanting to change or understand anything, that you will discover that you are free, and that you are agape. As long as you want to understand, as long as you want to justify, for example, a difference in age, but it could be anything, you are not available to be free. And remember that when you are free you recognize yourself, and that is the end of the myth of creation, it is the end of the belief in any kind of evolution. True freedom is only there, it is the end of the time of the masters, it is the end of the time of the teachings. And remember what I said, I told you an important sentence, even we who have been called masters, Melchizedeks, we have not been able to contribute in any way to your freedom. Because from the moment you present yourself in one way or another as a master, you take ascendancy over the other, or the other submits to you, he cannot be free. You are Christ, but as long as you follow Christ, you cannot be free. And it is the same for every master. And we Melchizedeks can affirm this now, and you have Melchizedeks, like Esho. What has he done except create a sect? The only one who's seen through all this is Krishnamurti. Even Sri Aurobindo didn't see the light. He created a movement. You still have Auroville in India. Well, he had to pay for all this, because he enslaved and locked it up. And we all played along. Because we didn't have the opportunity to live it, to know it, to understand it. We were persuaded, as in that part of the world, where some people presented themselves as gods, even to help others, even in service, but they deprived them of freedom. But we could not know that at the time. Today, all that is over, definitively over. You will have the same possibility of being free, if you put yourself 1 minute in the present instant, without questioning, by embracing, by accepting what is, you discover the truth, that's all. Any other question? Brother, what is the role for the planet of the Pyramid of Bosnia? Is it still active? And what are the tunnels of Revan for? All the pyramids on the planet, without exception, even though they are powerful electromagnetic places, portals and wormholes, are part of the matrix confinement. Nothing more. It has given frameworks of life, it has given energies, for example, the Egyptian pyramids, but also those of Buski and elsewhere, are things, pyramids that are everywhere on the planet. These pyramids have never freed you. They kept you locked up, that was explained, I explained it many years ago through the predation lines. All the carved structures, whether it is the animals, whether it is the carvings that you see here, whether it is the carvings in all traditions and in all civilizations, are just the concretization, the materialization. The Nephilim have played a lot with sculptures, they have created giant animals, you have seen them here and everywhere. But all of that is part of the confinement, except what the Nephilim did 320,000 years ago before leaving the planet. It was the giants, they carved hexagons that were to allow the circles of fire to channel the light, to the crystalline core of the earth that was released in 2011, which was accompanied by the release of the earth, but did not release the consciousness. That is to say that today, except for the brothers and sisters who live agape, all the others are still convinced that they are a consciousness, and therefore speak of evolution, of vision, of new earth. They will never be free until the event, because they maintain the confinement, like energy. Even if you use energy for healing, which is totally justified, it is also a confinement. The truth knows no energy, no time, no space. Because you are the space, before you are a person and a form. You are love only, and nothing else. And as long as you believe you are something else, as long as you live something else, as long as you believe that you will reach love through any technique whatsoever, you cannot be free. Look at the testimonies, you have millions of brothers and sisters who are living it. The conscience will never accept to die, it thinks it is eternal. The ego also believes itself to be eternal, the soul also believes itself to be eternal, and the spirit also believes itself to be eternal. This is totally false. Find yourself and you will laugh at your past postures, at your spiritual research, at your steps, whatever they may be. Today, some people, and you here today, yes, you enjoy life. You are dreaming, you know that you are dreaming, so there is no more obstacle to be amazed by what you are living, by what you are feeling, but you do not make it an objective, you see? So, more questions. Brother, will a gape, this is a question from a sister, will a gape eventually spread all over the earth? Over the whole creation, since it is the end of the dream of creation. We have been telling you this for years. Sarati had spoken of it long before the celestial weddings. In 2005 to 2006, he had spoken of the reabsorption of Mercury by the solar pretosphere, the transformation of the sun into a red giant. You are living it all right now. The light of Betelgeuse, the light of the Nephilim, the variability of what you see in the sky, all of this we have been telling you for a long time. Brother. So question of a sister, what is the importance of the place of Tiwanaku and does it have a fundamental role for the continuation of events on Earth? Tiwanaku was, of course, linked to the Nephilim, and all those who came afterwards to other cultures, the Andean cultures in the broadest sense, have a bond of affiliation. There is a affiliation link between the Elohim, the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, the Ekans, the genetician mothers, since it all comes down to you. You have lived it all, you don't need to remember it, because as soon as you're at time zero, you come out of the dream, and it can no longer interest you. This does not deprive you, of course, and you see it, of coming to these kinds of places, not to find the history but to really live, that is all. But you don't make it a goal. You eventually make it a pleasure, a joy, a discovery, that's what's pleasant. Because, as you have noticed, all of you, without exception, as soon as you were taken, even by a place like here, when I say here it is Peru or others in Latin America or in other countries. There is no more room for thought. There is no more space for projection. You're immersed in the present instant, even when you take a picture of the illusion. And you are free, any excuse is good. Not to mention that this pretext is still more pleasant than living nightmares like some brothers and sisters, who are still suffering, who are asking themselves billions of questions, who are afraid of what is going to happen. I have been repeating for years, fear or love. Biden afterwards said suffering or love. The one who is agape, even if he is sick, even if he is angry, cannot be deviated from what he is living. He can be affected, yes, like any human brother or sister, by an illness, by a pain, by an emotional conflict, by a financial problem, yes, but he is no longer fooled. He no longer makes any correlation with any evolution or transformation, he is entirely free in his present. And indeed, as you may notice, the fact of being here, regardless of your feelings, your perceptions, the simple astonishment of the look in what you are looking at, brings you closer to the present instant. Because when you look at what you see, of course, you may ask yourself questions, but you do not ask yourself questions. As soon as you see something, you're immersed in the present instant. And that's very important, so that you can find yourself again. Another question. Brother. So, question from a sister, to what dimension does the door of Aramruri take us? It takes you to something that is related to cetaceans, that is related to mother geneticists, that is related to those who thought they were gods and did not understand that those they were helping, that they wanted to help, were the same as them. The big difference over the last 2,000 years is that Christ told you, what you do to the least among you, you do to me, but you're Christ, of course. You're the way, the truth and the life. You wrote the script, so that you could find yourself at the end of the dream, at the end of the myth. And that is a great freedom. The question was what? Brother, to what dimension does the door of Aramruru take us? The gate of Aramruru is very important. It is not linked to a circle of fire, because there is no circle of fire in Latin America except in the Gulf of Mexico, where there is only one left, so we are more in Mesoamerica rather than in South America. The others were in their time, weren't they? There are two in France, but not because France is superior to anything, but because in terms of the script, the writing of creation, it was important that it be there, but there is no superiority. But you know that the circles of fire, which were to guide the original light, the principle, from the source to the crystalline core of the earth, have played their role. So Aramru, what you are saying, of course sends you back to the village of the Nephilim. I remind you that the Nephilim, who were there until 320,000 years ago, came to experience matter through what? Through stone, only that. That is to say, they crystallized consciousness in stone, to remember the dream. And when the confinement arrived by the acontic forces, which had the role, not only to lock you in, since you were locked in the matrix of creation by the genetician's mothers, but to allow you to find, if I may say so, the way out. And the one who lives agape can't say anything else, the Ejin is not negative. From an absolute point of view, he is the one who allowed you to come out of the dream, ye old Abad. Then who do we thank? The mother geneticists, who created consciousness and manifestation, or the Edens who locked you even more in this manifestation, and who ultimately allowed you to find yourself. Do not judge, neither good nor evil, all this belongs to history, all this belongs to the functioning of the consciousness, fragmentary, illusory. You're all of these things at once. This does not prevent you from feeling good and evil, but there again, you are no longer fooled. You would have to be stupid to say that evil does not exist, you see it every day, in you and around you. But it's part of the game, it's part of the dream, it's part of the nightmare. You're none of those things. Look into it and you're free. And no one can deny freedom as soon as they see it. And living is understanding. What was the question? Because I'm afraid to stray, please repeat it. Brother. So, what was the question? I don't know anymore. It was the door of Aramru, I think I answered. Brother. How big is the gate of Aramru? To the source directly. All the dimensions are there. Both the energies of confinement and the energies of freedom. It is the expression of civilization. Remember the words of Krishnamurti, of Brother K, it is not really a sign of good health to feel good in this world, and in this society. But you can't run away from it, you have to assume it and go through it, because it is your dream, you wrote it, before you realize that there has never been anyone. That is to say, to pass from a gate between a brother and a sister, or a network, to what has been named, I believe by Chief Head, this a gate resonance spatial interdimensional network. You are space, you are not this body, you are no body, you are no stone, you are no world, you are no dimension. But nevertheless, we had to go through this, to somehow find the thread of history. And that is all. Brother. So this is the question of a sister. I often see a white mist appearing when I am in darkness or in the dark. What does it correspond to? This is the white paradise. It has been explained countless times. Even in complete darkness you see white. So sometimes in the form of mist, sometimes it will be the etheric grid above your bed, sometimes it is white present as in the form of, yes, white numerals moving around the room. It is the access to the white paradise, it is the junction of being and non-being, which has been named, Ma has told you again, Shantinalaya, the abode of supreme peace. At some point, as you know, at the collective event, everything will be white. And then you will see that what causes the white is what we call the black hole, the void. Or the great hole, that is what all the brothers and sisters who live it describe. You are making the junction today between being and non-being, between the person, the soul, the spirit, and the truth. And before the truth, there is no longer any body that holds, no soul, no spirit, no energy, and even less the conscience. But of course, being in the dream, the consciousness will be there until the last moment of the dream, but it is no longer polarized, it is no longer drawn towards external knowledge, it is in the acceptance of the instant. Because the joy is there, it is not in cogitation, it is not in reflection, it is not in anticipation. Keep that for what you have to evolve in this world, in your daily life, but do not mix in what you are none of those things. Brother. So question from the same sister. I'm thinking of moving to Peru, is that a good thing for me? Today it was explained. You know, before the years, between 2009 and 2012, there were many readjustments, brothers and sisters who were divorcing, getting married, changing countries, changing professions. Afterwards, we told you that you simply had to be where you are, because, what is, you can do nothing about it. Of course, in spite of this, there are impulses to change countries, to change things. The only way to know if it comes from the ego or if it comes from what you have written yourself and that you must somehow actualize, manifest, is that in one case it will be fluid. If it is the case, everything will be put in place without effort. On the other hand, if it's not your place to be there, you'll only have obstacles. It's as simple as that. Anything in the order of the light is easy. Even in a very serious illness, if it is the light that acts and that has put you in this state, you accept it. And it is easy to die, there is no more resistance, there is no more reluctance. You are going to live it. I am not saying you here, but through what is happening around the world at all levels. I am not only talking about the virus, but I am also talking about the taboo created by societies. You can see in the so-called religious worlds that confrontation between all religions, between all beliefs, it is only increasing. But he who is free, or who accepts this freedom, even without living it, what is, what should not be, will not be. So, for your question, you are putting out an intention. I intend to live in Peru. If it is done without you, of course, you will be the one who will pack the boxes to move, who will settle their papers, but everything, if everything is facilitated, then yes, it is the fluidity of the unit, whatever the end of the myth, it is that it must be undertaken. And that's the way it is with everything in your life. Observe well what is easy, and what is resistant. What is of the order of the intelligence of light is always easy. What is of the order of the ego, of the consciousness, of the one who believes he is evolving, it will always be difficult, even in the dream. It is the only way to differentiate. Then of course, for those who live agape, there is joy, irrepressible, no matter what happens. But there too, in the same way, you have an idea, an intention, you put it down. But it's not the power of intention, there's no question of thinking about it afterwards so that it materializes. Actualize it, and see what happens. Whether it's in a couple relationship, for a change of country, for a change of profession, for any event. If you accept it, if you're in acceptance of what is, you have the right to express an intention, and you will see what is going to happen, immediately afterwards. First of all, is your heart light, despite the apprehensions, especially in a change of continent, and of life structure, or not, even if there are legitimate fears. But especially afterwards, do things fall into place by themselves, or do you have to make an effort? If there are efforts to be made, if there are resistances, obstacles, then it is not a good intention. If it is facilitated, then it is the intelligence of light. That is what you have written for this period. You have brothers and sisters who have been in the same place all their lives. You have sisters and brothers who, today, without knowing why, find themselves changing everything. It is not they who decide, once again. But, be certain that you are still in the very good place to live your exit from the dream, that you are retired, a doctor, that you are a company director, that you are unemployed, that you are a civil servant. It does not change anything. You have to be available. If you're available, the intelligence of light will manifest itself. And you will be fulfilled, because you will live in freedom. But if before that you ask, you want to know, you want to understand, you are not free, and you are not in agape. It is not possible. It is very hard to let be what is, because we are also used to react, to foresee, to undertake, to adapt to situations, to diseases, to find solutions, when the intelligence of light is the ultimate solution, is the greatest of solutions. Because you are also this intelligence of light. But as long as you believe that you are a person, a character, you cannot be free in its entirety. Certainly you will have lived experiences, you'll have lived vibratory states, but you are not free. The one who is free knows it intrinsically. He can never question that freedom, even if he is put in prison for one reason or another. And that is what makes all the difference between the one who thinks he is free or revolving, and the one who has understood that all this, while living it, was a huge joke. What does not prevent you from taking pleasure, it has been said, whether it is sexual, whether it is all that you have as passions, as hobbies, as desires, it is part of the dream. That's why AIVANHOV and Chief Head, both of them highly value the present instant. Because there is no other key than the present instant. And this present instant, it must be free of any will. It is a moment of reception and acceptance of absolutely everything. That is how you discover and live the truth. As long as you believe that you have to open a kekara, as long as you even believe, today, to open the doors, the stars, which yet have been extremely important, you are not free. Freedom, it is simply in your availability in the present instant. That is where you live agape, and that is where you find yourself. That is where you remember that you are anterior not only to this body and this form and this birth and this history, but to everyone. It is a lived experience. And of course, agape love escapes from you at that moment in profusion. It is available to everyone. It was Christ who said, "Who touched me?" and the woman was healed. It is exactly the same today. Look at Egba, Chief Head. People ask him for agape resonances. He doesn't even need to know, it's done without him. And without the other one. That's the truth. Of course there's an intention at the beginning, from the one who he asks, but it's quickly forgotten. That zero time, that's what interdimensional space agape is all about. You discover that you are all space, which means that all creation is within you, and not elsewhere. That is what Mawananda said when she was incarnated, what she told you again the last time, on the lake. I think you are missing Bida. But Bida has already come and he will obviously return before the end of your journey here. Another question. Brother, my name is. A sister then. Is. Brother, so this is a sister's question. My name is Mary, and I have dedicated my life to the therapeutic arts inspired by the goddess Sophia. Can you connect with her, and what is the message that she can deliver to us? Yes, absolutely. Stop believing in this nonsense and be free from me, Sophia says. Free of all adoration, veneration, whatever it may be. That was a time in your life. You can continue this, of course, that's what I used to say to all therapists, but don't be fooled anymore, it's all in cinema. There's no more Sophia than there is Marie. These are all archetypes. Freedom is in humility, simplicity, and recognizing that you are nothing. As long as there is identification or worship, there can be no freedom. Of course, there are fabulous experiences, fabulous perceptions, enormous energy work, but it doesn't help you to be free. No use at all. Freedom doesn't care about energy, freedom doesn't care about archetypes, freedom doesn't care about your dream, you created it. Today, you must free yourself from all models, whatever they may be, even if they've led your life happily so far. I am not talking to you about anything else but your freedom, that is to say, what you are. You're also Sophia, you're also Mary, but you are also the devil. As long as this has not been lived within you, of course, you will remain subject to perceptions, visions, experiences. It is already good, but it is not the truth. The truth does not need any vision, any energy, any perception, any work, but once again, I have said that if you're energetic, continue to heal people. But do not be fooled, it will get you nowhere. There is no one, not Sophia, not you. Freedom is there, and it is a great satisfaction to live it, much greater than all the vibratory, spiritual, even mystical experiences, and moreover, Chief Head, I think you have demonstrated it. You had seen for those who approached Chief Head 2 years ago, he could do what he wanted in all dimensional planes. He lived it all. Today, he no longer seeks to live all that, he is in his simplest humanity, he is human. The truth, it is there, and it is not in the expansion of consciousness, in the vibrations that have been useful, I repeat, up to a certain point. You want to be free? Do you want to be joy or not? You don't have to do anything, just look inside and go through all the visions, all the perceptions, all the chakras, the energies, the gates, the stars and all that, which are real in the matrix plane, in the supraconsciousness, but as Spider said, you are prior to consciousness. He had called it Para-Brahman or consciousness, which has nothing to do with unconsciousness, and even less to do with supraconsciousness. You can only live it, you cannot imagine it, you cannot apprehend it. So the only message I can give you from Sapphire is, be free of yourself, be free of any story, of any scenario, of any becoming. Immerse yourself completely within the present instant and go through, without holding it back, all the visions, all the energies that you perceive, which are real on a matrix level, but which are part of the dream. The true freedom, it is there. Look at the chief head, he can talk to you about crystals, chakras, doors, stars, but he knows full well that today, it is no longer useful, and that the only way to spread the good news is to open your arms, to open your heart, and to be in humility, to be totally human, without claiming anything, nor any alienation, nor reliance on even the most prestigious archetype. This is true freedom. All the rest today are only breaks, imprisonments, illusions. Then of course, there are also experiences, but I remind you that the absolute state beyond any state, the Jnani, the liberated, has nothing to do with experiences even if he lives them. All those who live agape, today there are many of them, do not need to go out of their bodies, to feel energies, to have visions, even if they are there, they do not care about them. Because they know that it belongs to the dream. Once again, and I repeat firmly, as Bhatti said, you cannot and must not believe me. It's up to you to verify it. So it is easy today with the spatial interdimensional resonance agape, you become space, you put an end to time. What room is left for Sapphire, for Mary, for your Debat and for civilizations? There is no room. Except the pleasure of being immersed in the present instant, for you who are here. We can go on. Brother, she's a sister. In Aramru, it is as if my heart opened even deeper. In Tiwanaku in front of the temple gate, my heart pulsed very much. There is a connection and lightness in the whole being. Can you tell us about this door? I think we've talked about it. The sun gate is the temple gate. It is the junction of being and non-being. On one side the manifestation, I remind you that the cut stones, in one way or another, that you have seen everywhere, are only the materialization of consciousness. It is the dream of the Nephilim who cut the stones, who cut the circles of fire. This is what has been called in other places the Viracocha. It is also what has been called civilizations, whether they are Mayan, Inca, Andean, Pre-Pre or also Pre-Pre. That's where, the reign of the giants on Easter Island as well, of course, but in countless ways on Earth. Be available for what is to be lived in the instant, without projecting, without asking. The closer you will get to the spontaneity of the present instant, the more you will live it, as our sister says, what we call Shanti Nilaya, what you call this particular opening of your heart, which is nothing else but the access to the zero time of being and non-being. The gate of the sun and other places that are here in this country in relation, for example, to the alignment with the solstice, refer you to the balance of yin and yang. Because the solstice, you know very well, whether it is summer or winter, that it has a special meaning, which is very important, not only for agriculture, not only for rituals of whatever kind. This is the moment you remember. It's the moment when there's a special connection. And so the sun gate is very precisely, the junction of being and non-being materialized by the stone. Many structures, here, but in Egypt and elsewhere, had only this function, regardless of the sometimes barbaric rituals that were used, or more sophisticated ones. Remember that the cut stone is the crystallization of consciousness and the crystallization of dream, and that it is precisely through these cut stones, and in particular at the gate of the sun, but also, for example, at the pyramid of the sun, at Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, that you will recover the memory, not of history, but the memory of who you were before history. Therefore, the gate of the sun is the gate of time zero. It is the junction of being and non-being, Shanti Nilaya, or the abode of supreme peace. Another question. Brother, question from a sister. What is the origin of my ophthalmic migraines? Is it an action of the light? How to manage the crises? So first of all, I have to find in this room who has ophthalmic migraines. Brother, she's there. Last name is. So, there are two factors that express and explain this ophthalmic migraine in you. The first factor is not, I would say, emotional fear, but emotional fear. That is to say, there is always a fear underlying your personality's mechanisms of functioning, but also your spirituality. There is always a fear that is there. This fear is not identifiable in relation to an event. You cannot say, even if you say it, I'm afraid of this or that. But it is a mechanism of functioning of your consciousness, which is also linked to the feminine transgenerational, therefore to the lineages, which translates into hypervigilance, an exaggerated need for control, because there is an underlying fear, which I repeat, is a mode of functioning such as the need to preserve oneself from certain things. And therefore, a total non-availability for the present instant. So that, of course, is the most subtle explanation there is. Now it's up to you to find out, and I guess when you have ophthalmic migraines, you've undertaken all kinds of therapies, of course, whether they're energetic, mechanical, chemical, and whether they're natural or otherwise, but if you ask the question, it's because they're always there, even if they're less intense. I simply invite you to reflect on the mechanisms of functioning of your person. I'm not talking about the ego of the personality, but simply about your person who tends, in a general way, to be, how shall I say, fearful. It's as if you're waiting for something to happen next. Besides, it doesn't only happen through ophthalmic migraines, but through inflammatory pathologies in several orifices of your face. Don't you know that? This is what I see in your cocoons of light. Accept that you do not exist, accept that you are only a dream, and you will be free, even from your ophthalmic migraines and the inflammatory manifestations of your orifices of the face. Another question. Brother, then a sister. Could you give us the essential information we need to know about the origins of the Inca sites we visit, their functions and the reasons for our presence on these sites? I think that all this has been explained as questions have already been asked, isn't it? I have explained it to you from all points of view. First of all, being in the present instant, evidently you have all been incarnated, since everyone is you. You're at the same time the Viracocha, the Nephilim, the Spanish warriors, you're at the same time the Incas, the Mayas and all that. So it's not to replay the scene, it's not to understand something intellectually. You go back to places where you lived, not to awaken memories, but I would say, the primary memory. All this is only cinema, a theater scene, nothing more, which has no substance, all the more reason through the culture or the different civilizations that have succeeded one another here, through the stones, the sculpted, carved stones, from everywhere. You have seen it in Aramru, you'll see it again in other places, and you will live it. The important thing is to live it, not to understand it, not to link it to a story. On the contrary, be overwhelmed by the questioning, by the beauty, by the energies and the real states of consciousness that you are going through. That is all. Everything else is self-made. And above all, you need to live it, not to understand it, because as Bidi and Deborah said, living is understanding, but not intellectual understanding, the understanding of that truth. That is to say that all this is only a passing dream, and all that passes is not true. Of course, I say it and I say it again, even we Melchizedecs have been deluded and we have been deceived. But it was necessary to go through that to deliver a certain number of truths, a certain number of vibrations, a certain number of lived experiences, which had to place you at the door of the Absolute, therefore at the door of the temple, between the manifestation or the manifested and the non-manifested, between the being and the non-being, the junction between the wide paradise and the Absolute, the nothingness that the ego or the self is so afraid of, It is satanic, because it does not see the light, the golden light which is astral, the true light. It is white, it comes from the great heaven, and not from the little heaven. The small sky is all that is astral, all that is related to matrices, here as elsewhere, to histories, to civilizations, to societies, to planetary spheres of life, all that does not exist. It is only a projection. Consciousness is a projection, total, in the pathological, psychopathological sense. Stop trying to retain, stop trying to acquire, just be present, beyond any reference, to Christ, Mary, Buddha, Sophia or anyone else. Be autonomous, and as Esho said, be lazy. Of course, I am talking about who you are. I am not talking about being lazy in what is obligatory in your obligations, because the two you have written. Another question. Brother. Okay, so I ask all the questions. It's a sister's question. OMA, in which plane or dimension are you now? Can you tell us about Shambhala? Is it the place where the Ascended Masters are? Shambhala was destroyed on All Saints' Day 2009. The Ascended Masters are Jum Gurus, the Ketimi and Delmeria, besides they are redeemed. Shambhala was an intermediate level that they created from scratch. Archangel Enlil, on All Saints' Day 2009, destroyed all this falsity. All the teaching of these pseudo-ascended masters is a confinement much worse than the one we have delivered us Melchizedeks. There's no more Ketimi than Elmeria, than, and all that. They are beings who have taken themselves for superior to you. Shambhala does not exist. It belongs to the astral. There are no more ascended masters than, as the chief head, butter on the stick, as they say. This is a swindle far more serious than the teaching of the Melchizedeks. By the way, have you seen Shambhala or have you read it? Don't confuse what you've read with what you've lived. What you have read has no value, because it is a belief. Have you been to Shambhala? No, I haven't been to Shambhala. Chief Head went there in 2009, and besides, during his youth, he was enlisted, if I may say so, by the Ascended Masters, and he very quickly saw the deception, and he was 33 years old. He refused all this, all the teaching of Alice Bailey and the teaching of the soul. He is Luciferian in essence. He deprives you of freedom, because he projects you into the future, into an evolution. Even the teachings of beings who have been authentic have told you about the sixth root race, because they had no possibility of coming out of time as Bide did. They were prisoners of the supraconsciousness. Do not be fooled, do not adopt teachings, because you have read them, but only if you have lived them, and if you really live, you'll see that the truth is not, neither Shambhala, nor in the Arcturians, nor in the Vigalians, nor in the Syriacs, nor elsewhere. It's all cinema. Even the dimensions, and yet the teaching is called Outres dimensions, do not exist. There is only you, until you understand that there has never been anyone, and that at the moment you are in perpetual agape, you're in joy. This naked joy, without object, about which Marwan Amoy, Jemad Galgani, and so many others have spoken to you at such length. Do not believe in anything. Belief today is the worst bulleted object that you can put at your feet and in your heart. The heart is spontaneity. It does not care about history, it does not care about tomorrow, it does not care about yesterday, it does not care about itself or the other, because it knows that it is all the others. He lives it, really, he feels that what comes out of him and emanates from him, and in every possible way, is the same in front of the beloved as well as the hated. He cannot make a difference. It is not a concept, it is a real lived experience. Another question. Brother, then a sister. Is the presence of spaceships increasing in the Andean zone? Yes, you've seen some manifestations that you might call clouds, right? But this is not just here, it's all over the planet. Besides, as Egba said, Chief Head, if creation must be absorbed, it must be absorbed from all dimensions at the same time, in a collective moment, in order to put an end to the swindle of the manifestation of form, dream and consciousness. That is why all past and present civilizations, all extraterrestrials of all dimensions of the dream, are indeed, no longer around the sun, but around the earth, and are only waiting for the moment that no one knows, to appear in your eyes. No one knows the date. Chief Head has been fooling we too many times, because the surprise must be total. Simply no one can ignore that this process of extinction is very real. Only the one who is burying his head in the sand cannot see what is simply happening visibly on this earth, which is, of course, linked to the invisible, and therefore to the proximity of what you call the brothers of the stars, who are nothing other than you, in another time, and in another space, which we have called dimensions. The universe, with all its solar systems, with all its worlds, will pass. You will never pass. The universe will be destroyed in its entirety, the multiverse will be atomized, that you will always be there. Once again, you cannot understand that, and your consciousness cannot accept it, you can only live it, really. What dies is not true. Another question. Brother. Then a question from your manservant, and a testimony at the same time. I had a very violent fall on the exit hut at the Fairy Pond at Canmes on September 26, 2018. It caused an arteriovenous meningeal fistula on the left. The fistula causes me to hear systole and diastole all the time in the skull. This completely prevented me from sleeping, to the point that it was unbearable, and I even inquired about assisted suicide in Luxembourg. After a while, I embraced the beating and whistling with love, and it got much better. I also became aware that we were not a bag of meat, but a bag of tubes. For some time now, the breath has been coming back, especially at night, and is again preventing sleep. A solution by embolization is possible, but presents risks. Can I hope for an improvement in another way? Yes, of course there is. Accept that you are nothing to be lived for. You are the absolute, you are not that person, that is to say that somewhere, there I speak for you, it could not be the same for everyone, but in your case, it is still the belief in being a person, that is to say that somewhere, whatever you have lived, you are still convinced to call yourself like this, to have lived this, to have to live this. It is a great challenge that you have written, especially as you say to the Fairy Pond, as if by chance. But you are a fairy, you are not only this form that is next to me. Accept this and you will be free of this. Whatever the noise, whatever the insomnia, there is a mechanism that has not yet been lived. It is the disappearance of the person, and without the disappearance of the person, without any real vision of what this ghost is that is stirring to and are living, to simply live, there is no distance that has been seen. There is identification somewhere, and all that this accident proposes to you is to put an end to the identification with this character, and to find a medical solution. In your case, because as you say, this is something where there are risks, this operation, and as you asked for, there is indeed another way to do it. It's not energetic, and I believe you received advice a few days ago from one of the eminent Melchizedecs, who offered himself to perhaps give you a solution. But the real solution is to stop believing that your last name is this and that you are this person of this age. Of course, you'll have to take responsibility for the person afterwards. But the change of point of view, as Baidu would say, the acceptance that you are a total illusion, will set you free. That's how you wrote it for yourself. All you care about is yourself. It's unstoppable. Freedom for you comes at this price. So of course you could say, and it had to be said by Chief Head, I think, vigilant praise. It's not quite right today. Today, you're totally allowed to sleep, but you can't sleep. So you still believe, a little too much, that you're that person. So you haven't yet lived through the whole present instant. Because the present instant is precisely in your night when you do not sleep, to see that you are neither what you hear in your head, nor this body that does not sleep, nor this consciousness that is considering suicide. You are none of those things. Accept it and you will live it. The acceptance I am talking about is not just a mental technique or self-suggestion, it is a mechanism of consciousness itself and of energy itself. That's what I could tell you. Brother. Okay, then I have another question. So go ahead. Brother, I have already asked you twice for help in finding a home. Never two without three. I am homeless again. Can you help me find a roof, if possible in Peru? Blessed are those who have no home. The roof is also you, TOI, you. When you understand the analogy, you'll smile about it yourself. Laughs. You'll be home when you don't have a roof over your head. Brother, but I don't have a roof anymore. Exactly, but it hasn't lasted long enough. Laughs. A few more months and you'll be mature. But now, remember what I said earlier about a sister who was also considering Peru there. If it has to be done, it will be done, and you'll see that it's very fluid. That is where you make the difference between a personal wish that is completely legitimate, and the intelligence of light that you are. Is it fluid, then it will happen. If it is to be a struggle, then it is not the right way. But then again, to be homeless or roofless is a travesty of being rid of you, TOI. You're the world, it's all inside you. When I say everything is in you, it's not the solutions that are in you, it's really the world that's in you. So, the difference is that knowing that you are the world and living it, when you really and concretely live it, you don't care about anything anymore. Everything happens spontaneously. It's a great freedom, that's agape, that's joy. But make the link between your head, which is the roof of your body, what happened with that breath, the roof, the house, you didn't say house, you said roof, I need a roof, and then yourself. There is a relationship through the words you use, which betray that somewhere, there is still the belief in a character, which prevents you from experiencing total freedom, even in relation to this noise, even in relation to this pathology. Do you have any other questions? Brother, there are no more written questions. Are there any oral ones? Brother, I think so, yes. Brother, a sister. You wanted to ask a question earlier. Sister, yes, but it was answered. I wanted to know, what is time zero? Brother, she wanted to know, what is time zero? Live it. It is joy. It is the fusion of being and non-being. Time zero is when time stops and you become all space and you really live that there is no one. Neither you nor the other, total emptiness. Then, whether you call it Tao, whether you call it the Absolute, whether you call it nothingness, you're at the same time nothing and everything. This is not a play on words. Time zero today is in the present instant. It is neither yesterday nor tomorrow. It's not in any story and in any character, that's what zero time is. It's total bliss, because that's where you remember what you were before you were this body, this life, or any body and any life. You're all and nothing. That is time zero. It is also the moment for those who perceive the energies, the installation of the double terrace at the level of the heart, which no longer has anything to do with the heart chakra, the ascending crown, or the radiant crown of the heart. It is the natural state, as Ebba used to say. It is the moment when what comes out of your chest can no longer be modified by the will, by your state of mind, by the circumstances of the character. You can do nothing about it. This love spreads from you in the manner of Christ, and those who touched him were healed. That is what zero time is. It is the one who no longer believes in anything, who no longer projects anything, who no longer stops any perception or sensation. He sees that he is at the origin of everything and that everything is a dream. Nothing else. That's what zero time is all about. Brother, are there any other questions? Sister, what is the reality of living beings on earth, animals, plants, independently of man? Nothing, a dream. Nothing at all. It is all just passing by. Of course, this question comes from the mind, it is not a reproach, but you are again trying to conceptualize what is to live and that you can only live when you drop all concepts. That is sacrifice. Ebba, chief head, spoke about it at length. But speaking about it and living it, it is not because you have heard this, which is the truth that is lived by Ebba and by so many other brothers and sisters, other rabbis as they say. Because they all recognized each other before creation. But as long as you try to imagine it, To understand it, you cannot live it. That's sacrifice. And when you make that sacrifice, there's only one thing you can say afterwards: there is no sacrifice. But to the person it's called sacrifice, but there's no one, and when you say a person and when you say there's no one, that should make you think a little bit. It's the identification that's suffering. As long as you're identified with anything, a gender, being a man or a woman, you are suffering, because you are incomplete. It was called at the time the primordial androgyny. This was related to the 12th body, the fusion of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. We talked about it for many years in 2016 and 2017. I also invite you to reread what Chief Head had channeled 3 years ago, which was the Ancient of Days. Reread the Ancient of Days, because it is the story of the Pachamama. And beyond the sacred feminine, I will tell you there is neither sacred feminine nor sacred masculine, whereas we have indeed, for years, insisted on the conscious co-creation of the sacred feminine. It is finding your inner unity. You are neither man nor woman. You are not even an angel, you are not even the source. You're all and nothing, at the same time. And that is not a concept again, it is a living experience. So after you put in the words Parabrahman, a consciousness, as Ekta says, it's because there has to be a representation. And it's in lived experience. And there are countless testimonies of brothers and sisters who live it. They will all tell you the same thing, regardless of their age, regardless of their sex, apparent. Brother, you said you had a question. We have a Macedonian among us who said he had a question. I'm listening. Brother, already the definition of Macedonian is wrong and any question I would ask is wrong. So I don't have a question. Brother, he doesn't have a question. Laughs. Brother, maybe just a little one, come on, since you're giving me the word. Laughs. Brother, what is the way, if there is a faster way, to live our true nature? Yes, it's called a gate resonance. So of course I'm not going to develop it, because that would be a bit long, but it has been explained and lived by countless brothers. Ebba talked a lot about it. The agape resonance is what takes you out of the idea of being a person, that is to say, out of identification. It takes you out of the illusion. Consciousness is an illusory dream. Agape resonance allows you to no longer be identified with yourself or with the other. You are space, you are love and nothing else, but also everything else. These are not abstruse words, it is the strict truth. And I'll tell you, the fastest way is zero time. Accept all that is, even without understanding and especially without comprehending. What is what must be. Whether it's a heart attack, whether it's fortune, whether it's misery, whatever you can imagine, it doesn't matter. The agape resonance, first between brothers and sisters, then in networks and then without anyone, between people, makes you see that indeed there is no one. When the brothers and sisters who live agape tell you there is no one, they are well aware that they are a form, that they have a function in this society, but they see through this illusion, really. They play the game as I said, they assume what they have to assume, but they are no longer fooled. It's a great lightness. Look, Chief Head, well, maybe you didn't know him before. But before, he weighed 40 kilos more, his working mechanism has nothing to do with today. He plays the game, he knows he's a character, he knows he's a person, who is of such and such a typology, of such and such a characterology, that he allows himself to express himself, without being fooled. There is freedom, there is agape and there is joy. And for years we have spoken to you about the 4 pillars of the heart. The indispensable humility. Above all, don't take yourself for nothing, because you are nothing. That is how you live that you are everything and that you are love, even before the appearance of the light, of the source. That is the truth. If you want to live it, abandon all pretension of your character. This does not mean that you should not have any desire. Love to eat, love to make love. That doesn't stop it. It's a problem of identification. From the moment you correct your positioning and your way of seeing, as I said, you can't change anything. What must be, what must not be will never be. From this acceptance there, gives you the possibility to be free and to be in the present instant and in time zero, it's the same thing. And to see for yourself that you are none of those things. And it's a great freedom, it's a great relief. The stage, you have to play it to the end, but you have many ways of playing it. And it's the way you play it that changes everything, not changing the script, but the way you actually play it. A professional theater actor knows very well when the acting is spontaneous. For example, in a comedy, everybody laughs in the theater, and on the night when it's not good, where nobody laughs. Yet it is the same theater scene that has been written and is to be performed. But it's how you play that theater scene that makes the difference. Don't be fooled into believing this or that. But above all, do not run away from anything. That is how you go through, that is how the intelligence of light goes through you. That is how the double terrace of the heart is activated. That is how unity is lived, and certainly not in history, and even less in a vibratory rise that concerns the consciousness. We have always told you that consciousness is vibration. Truth is silence. There are no words, there are no images, there is no one, and there is completeness. That is the one truth that is common to all. It is not the truth of Eva or of a brother who lives this, it is the truth common to all, everyone. All people. And there is no one. There's only the dream you've embraced, and that's enough to set you free. It's not a belief I'm asking you to have, or to create new beliefs, it's to live it. You all have the same opportunity to live it. The only obstacle is you, as a person. Remember this sentence also from Baidu, and also I believe from Brother K, it is not the person who is liberated, never. It is you who are liberated from the person. It is not really the same thing. However, most brothers and sisters who do not live it have the impression that they must be liberated from their person. They think they're a person who is going to be liberated. No. You are not a person. That's not a play on words. You're the whole manifested universe, here and everywhere at once. All the multiverse and everything has no substance. It's a dream. And how do you know it's real? By living it. That's what all the brothers and sisters who live at Gape express. Who live the abode of supreme peace, the joy, the beatitude, whatever the mood of the character. Whatever the anger, whatever the cries, whatever the situations. Acceptance. As long as you believe that you have to change something in who you are not free. Change your job, change your profession, that's fine. Change your husband, change your wife. But you don't have to change anything. What you are has always been there. That's not a play on words. Any other questions? Sister, I've changed my first name. I am Madeline since July 10, 2015, and since then my life has changed. Wait, I don't get it. I heard but I didn't understand anything. I mean, did you change your name on purpose? Sister, yes. But it's dramatic. Sister, at a baptism. Her. Sister, as Jesus Christ was baptized by John the Baptist by immersion. But Eva gave you the last key last year. The key to the yes. It's your surname and first name from birth. Not the one you decided to wear. Even though you have observed some changes. Freedom is to pronounce, that was explained by Eva almost a year ago in Tenerife. The ultimate key is your baptismal name and first name, which are a total illusion, but by pronouncing your last name and first name, you're free. Where are you going with your question of having changed your first name in 2015? Sister, precisely when you talk about identification. Yes, you're another person. Sister, that's it. But you are not free. Sister, yes. I am not free. This is the key that had been given by Eba. You have 3 channelings, 3 days in a row in the Canary Islands, which explained the basis of why the ultimate key had been hidden in illusion. Remember that your last name and your first name do not belong to you, they belong to the Ekans, within the legal framework of this earth. And it is precisely in there, in the scenario of the creation myth, that had been the ultimate key that allows you to be free. What are you getting at with this baptismal name from 5 years ago? Yes, you've changed, certainly, since it's vibratory. But it's not freedom. Sister. But I wanted to know if it had served a purpose. What was the point? Brother. To have changed your first name. No, it's just another illusion, a total illusion. If many brothers and sisters use false names, because they didn't like their first names at birth. You have to pronounce loud and intelligibly, last name and first name of birth recorded in the civil register. Because you do not own yourself. But that's where the key was hidden. So, changing your first name, even if it brings changes, doesn't set you free. Sister. It's still my middle name on my marital status. I did say the first name. You have to pronounce both the last name and the first name. You have countries, for example, where the name of the father and mother is the same. How do you do it in those cases? Because there were many questions from South American people, particularly Brazilians, last year. You have to take the father's name and not the mother's name. And your first name, the first name. I am not saying that you have to call yourself that, but in the vibratory process, you have to pronounce your last name and your first name. I refer you to the 3 channelings of last year in Tenerife, which was very precise and which explained this. And which, in addition to the explanation, were the vibration that allowed this. Sister. Thank you. Brother. I too have a name story. All my life I have been called John Paul, and in 2012, I redid my passport and was told that my name was John. And, well, I didn't agree because I had always been called Jean Paul. But what's on the birth certificate? Brother. There's John further on, Paul. So you're John, you are not John Paul. Brother. There were some rather amazing things afterwards. It was that I was offered a sculpture of Mary, made of wood, very beautiful, and on the pedestal there was written John and my year of birth. Surprising, but it's the truth. It's synchronicity, or hypersynchronicity. If your baptismal name, your civil status name was written John without a hyphen and Paul, your name is John. Brother. Yeah. And not John Paul. Sister. I have a question for compound names where there is a hyphen. Well, when your name is Anne-Marie? It's Anne-Marie, all right. Sister. Okay. Here, the difference is that it was John, space, Paul without hyphens. If you have a compound first name, that's the first name. That's the real name. It's not Anne or Mary. It's Anne-Marie. Brother. Any other question? Sister. I have a testimony if no one has a question. Brother. A testimony? We're listening to you. Sister. When we were late to Titicaca, the feminine aspect was very strong. When the storm broke out, during the candling of Ma, I really felt the union of the spirit with matter. A joyful euphoria made all the cells dance and there were no more limits. We were the dance of life. That's all you are. You are space, you are love. It doesn't create disidentification, or depersonalization, which would be a psychiatric term, but it creates freedom. Moreover, I believe that you lived the same thing, not only during the channeling of Ma on the lake, but also when you went to the door of time. Didn't you? Sister. Yes, I'm actually continuing my sharing. Never 2 without 3, you'll have yet another surprise with the fire. That is the intelligence of light. But I thank you for your testimony. Sister. So, I haven't finished. Oh yes, let's hear the rest then. Laughs. Sister. Anne-Marie, the resonance of the place make my heart leap up and open deeper, and then in front of the door of the temple at Iwanaku, the heart started to pulse faster with joy and lightness too. I felt like I was floating. It is as if the resonance of each place finally made a forgotten part of the being vibrate, like an encounter finally realized, a return to the origin of the worlds and beyond. It is the memory indeed. This is what all the brothers and sisters who are free say. They remember that they are anterior, not only to this birth and this body, or to any birth. They predate the creation. And when you live it, you cannot be deceived. You know that it is true without a shadow of a doubt and without any discussion. From that point on, well, the dream continues, of course, until the collective moment. But you're free of it. How do you feel today? Beyond the experience. Sister. Well, right now I'm living exactly the same thing. There's like an intensity of intense vibrations in the whole body. But at the same time, I can't really put words to it, but there's something else that supports all this, that sustains it. So I also recall, as the chief head says in the agape resonances, there is what is lived in the instant, which can indeed be extraordinary. But don't confuse what is lived in the instant with the results, which generally take 48 hours. You had 2 successive events according to what you say, 2 or 3 days apart, right? Sister. Yes. So in relation to the last event which was yesterday, right? Sister. Yes. You have to wait another 24 hours. But the changes can only be lived, and they are independent, moreover, of the lived experience at the moment of the experience itself. You have among you brothers and sisters who have said or who are going to say, conversely, I didn't feel anything. And who will also see the effects. Because yes, what you are doing here, which has been written, reactivates not the memories of these civilizations, but the very principle of creation. That's the good news. Creation is a dream, in all dimensions, and you yourselves have written the script. We have all written it, we are only acting what has been written. And I repeat, as Bhatti said, the way you play what has been written is enough to change everything. That's what you're going through right now, in every possible way. Do you have anything else to say? Sister. No, thank you. Just silence. Any other questions or anything else to say? Brother. It seems there are no more questions. So as for me, I have already said many things about this place, and I will end on a riddle, but I told you a few minutes ago, never 2 without 3. Be well equipped, that's all I can say. Laughs. When fire and water meet, when water from above and water from below meet, as on late Titikaka, as on the gate of time, you evidently have another important place left. Beyond all the other things you have to do. And in this place the third fusion, communion and resonance will take place. In the same way that what you live here is not necessarily linked to your history, even if you have lived here, but linked to the whole history of creation. That is why you have and will have countless returns from brothers and sisters, close or not, who are not here but who are living the same things as you. It will begin to surprise you, and there you will live that you are the other as much as you are you, and in the end there is neither the other nor you. This is the agape state. So on this note, perhaps I will give you all my blessings and I will not come back this time. I will have the opportunity to come back, I believe, at the end of March to draw conclusions from all that has lived here, but also, as you see, from all sides on this planet, at all levels. And I'm not just talking about the virus that's fashionable at the moment. The crown virus is not trivial, though. While you're in the coronation. Fear or love. Truth or dream. It's up to you, and you'll see it. And I give you all my love, all my blessings, and I tell you to see you in a few weeks. See you soon. Through Jean-Luc Young. Les Transformations. English Revised Translation. LMF.